Hey guys, it's Tatsuya. Today, let's talk about the most popular periods in Japanese history, from the end of the Edo period to the Meiji era. Every year, the Japanese public broadcaster NHK airs a Taiga Drama, which depicts Japan's history. The most popular period is the Sengoku period, and the period from the Edo and to the Meiji era. The Sengoku was the time where there was no de facto shogunate or government, and each region's shogun fought over territory. The end of the Tokugawa shogunate and the beginning of the Meiji period is as popular as the Sengoku era. There were many famous figures such as Sakamoto Ryoma, Yoshida Shoin, Saigo Takamori, and Ito Hirobumi. During this period, many regard these great men as heroes and consider its period an unprecedented era, even among politicians. Former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, for example, has great respect for Yoshida Shoin, who was born in Yamaguchi Prefecture, and Abe called him his teacher. There is also a national political party in Japan called the Japan Restoration Association. The word restoration generally refers to the Edo period's various uprisings to the Meiji period in my country. Today, let's take a brief look at the end of Edo and the Meiji periods. Before we talk about Japan in this period, let me explain what the world was like at that time. It was the latter half of the 18th century, and European countries such as the United Kingdom were trying to dominate the world and make it their own. At that time, Japan's Edo shogunate had adopted a seclusion policy and did not trade with most countries except for some areas such as Netherlands, China, and Korea. Then, in 1842, China was defeated by Britain in the Opium War. This was the moment where the shogunate realized the strength of the Western nations. Not long after that, in 1853, 4 American ships appeared off the coast of Tokyo Bay. This was the beginning of Japan's gradual resumption of exchanges with foreign countries. At that time, however, most Japanese did not realize the strength of the Western powers and were strongly inclined to expel them. Besides, the treaties that would later be signed were unequal to Japan's interests. Japan did not have the right to self-rule in tariffs and was granted consular jurisdiction. As the shogunate pursued foreign trade, export of the raw silk and tea increased dramatically, causing a shortage of domestic goods. Also, as the exchange ratio of gold to silver differed between Japan and other countries, many gold coins flowed out of Japan to foreign countries. As a result, the domestic economy was in turmoil. The confusion was caused by the fact that the shogunate unilaterally signed the treaty, although the imperial court was opposed to the treaty, which led to a growing anti-shogunate sentiment. As a result, Ii Naosuke, a senior figure in the shogunate, was murdered in 1860. In 1862, the samurai of Satsuma killed and wounded an Englishman, and the following year, British fleet shelled Kagoshima in retaliation. As a result, Satsuma and Choshu realized that the expulsion of the foreign countries was impossible. At that time, the shogunate was facing severe opposition for its hardline policies. In December 1867, the Edo shogunate fell. However, the conflict did not disappear. Some of the old shoguns and the Aizu clan resisted and fought against the new government forces. The war finally ended in 1869 when Enomoto Takeaki, who had occupied Hakodate with the old shogunate navy, was defeated in the Battle of Goryokaku and surrendered. From now, let's take a look at the policies of the Meiji government. At that time, Japan had clans or states, each with its own political power. The government dismantled these clans and laid the foundation for a centralized state system centered on the emperor. The government renewed the existing status system and abolished the hierarchy that had existed in the past. The people were allowed to marry between different status and were given freedom of choice in their occupation. In 1871, the government dispatched a large delegation led by Ambassador Iwakura Tomomi to Western countries to establish international relations. They visited 12 countries over 1 year and 9 months. One of the mission's objectives was to revise the unequal treaties. This did not succeed because Japan did not have a modern nation's various systems in place. However, the delegation did visit multiple modern facilities such as parliaments, factories, hospitals, schools, banks, etc. in Western countries and observed Western civilization's actual state. This significantly contributed to the subsequent modernization of Japan. The government established many government-owned factories, such as Tomioka Silk Mill, to increase Japanese economic power. It also hired Western engineers, sent foreign students to learn new technologies and knowledge, and focused on fostering modern industries. In addition to economic power, Japan also adopted a variety of technologies to modernize itself. Technologies such as the postal system, railroads, and shipping service were also developed at this time. However, the Meiji era was not a happy time for everyone. During the Edo period, samurai were allowed to carry swords and were proud of their status. However, in the Meiji era, the samurai were forbidden to carry swords and were put on equal footing with farmers and merchants. This led to a growing dissatisfaction among them. The biggest of these events was the Civil War of 1877, led by Saigo Takamori, the most prominent figure in the Meiji Restoration. 40,000 samurai in Kagoshima raised their arms against the government. The government mobilized a new army under the conscription system and did everything in its power to suppress the rebellion. After this, the Meiji government developed various reforms, and it was not until later that Japanese name became known throughout the world. Today, Japan needs change. In a stagnant economy, we need to change the future that we cannot see. I hope learning about the turmoil at the end of the Edo and Meiji periods will provide us with excellent hints to change present Japan for the better. That's all for this video today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Bye.